How a new philosophy can transform everything in your life. Rohn, do you believe your life is already set? That your income, your happiness, and your future are all dependent on luck, the government, or the company you work for? Let me tell you something that might sound far-fetched. Everything you have achieved up till this point does not matter as much as the philosophy you choose to adopt from this moment forward. I will show you that to change your philosophy is to change your destiny. When I started my journey, my philosophy was simple and restrictive. To wait. I would wait for the government to increase the minimum wage. I would wait for the company to be fair and pay me more. I would wait for life to eventually reward me. But tell me, how long do you think you would have to wait for the government to change your life? 1 year? 5 years? 10? Even if it did, would it be enough to completely transform your destiny? Of course not. This philosophy of waiting was comfortable, but it was also an invisible prison. And perhaps you have felt it too, that feeling that you work, but it seems like your life is always one step ahead, just out of reach. It was then that I discovered something powerful that completely changed my perspective, the philosophy of performance. I decided that I would work in such an extraordinary way that it would be embarrassing for my company not to pay me more. Think about it. When someone becomes indispensable, when their performance shines so brightly that no one can ignore it, the market bends to them. The company might resist for a while, but sooner or later it will have to recognize you. Because excellence creates discomfort for those who do not value it. I remember as if it were yesterday the day this idea truly hit me. I thought, what if, instead of waiting, I became so good, that it would be impossible to leave me behind? From that point on, my philosophy was no longer wait or demand. It was perform. Perform at a level that most people would not even consider. I did not just want to be paid for what I did. I wanted to be paid for the difference I made. Let me ask you, how many times have you felt that you were giving your all as you were not recognized? How many times have you thought that your company does not see your value? Perhaps you have even thought about giving up. But were you truly giving your maximum? Were you performing in such an impactful way that it would be impossible to ignore it? I discovered something fascinating. In the market, there are people who make $10 an hour, others who earn $100, and others who can make up to $1,000 an hour. The difference is not in the company nor in luck, but in the philosophy they carry. When I realized that it was possible to multiply my income by 10, and then by 10 again, it completely expanded my mind. I had no idea it was possible for someone to earn $5,000 an hour, until I saw lawyers, doctors, consultants, and speakers achieving exactly that. The question was no longer, is it possible? But, how can I get there too? And do not think this is only for people with sophisticated titles. Look at the reality today. A common programmer might be earning $5,000 a month. But if they decide to learn about artificial intelligence, in less than 2 years, they could be making $20,000. This is not a distant dream. It is market statistics. What changed? The performance. The philosophy of not accepting being just another person. But there is an obstacle, fear. The fear of working hard and not seeing results. The fear of taking a risk and failing. I had that fear too. I would ask myself, what if I dedicate myself? I make the effort, and it still does not work out. But let me tell you something I learned firsthand. The real failure is not in trying, not succeeding, but in never trying at all, in settling. Because when you perform at an extraordinary level, even if you do not reap immediate results, you transform into a different person. And that person will, inevitably, attract new opportunities. I saw this happen in my own life. When I began to perform at an above-average level, doors opened that I never would have imagined. At the age of 25, I was just a boy from rural Idaho. But when I decided to adopt the philosophy of performance, my income multiplied by 10, and then by 10 again. By the age of 32, I had already made my first fortune. It was not because someone gave me a chance. It was because I performed in such a way that it would have been embarrassing not to recognize me. Now, I want you to imagine this applied to your life. What if you decided, from today, to be so good at what you do that no one could ignore you? Imagine you arrive at your company or in the market, and instead of asking for a raise, you are called to receive one because your performance is impossible to ignore. Imagine clients seeking you out not because you are cheap, but because you are the best. Imagine live at your level where recognition becomes inevitable. If you think this is just theory, consider the examples we have right in front of us. Steve Jobs was fired from the very company he founded. But when he returned, he performed at such an extraordinary level that he transformed Apple into the most valuable company in the world. On the other hand, look at artists who had fame, money but lost everything because they believed that talent was enough. They did not have a philosophy of performance, of constant evolution, and they fell. So, tell me, what is your philosophy today? Do you wait? Do you demand? Or do you perform? Because in the end, each is the philosophy you choose that determines not just how much you earn, but who you become. And it is the truth. The market always pays more, and pays better, for those who perform at an extraordinary level. The market never resists excellence. If there is one thing I want you to take from this, it is this: do not wait, do not demand, perform. Become so good that it would be embarrassing for them to ignore you. When I was 25 years old, a mentor said something to me that forever changed the way I saw life. If you work hard on your job, you will make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you will make a fortune. In that instant, I realized that the key was not just to complete tasks, but to transform myself into a better person every day. Think with me, how many people do you know who spend years doing the same job, at the same level, with the same salary, waiting for something external to change? Is not that exactly where the mistake lies? I discovered that a job only pays for the hours you put in, but personal development pays for the person you become. The difference between the two is vast. I could have spent my whole life waiting for raises, but I understood that if I became more valuable, the market would inevitably pay me more. It is like an invisible law. The world always rewards those who decide to grow. I remember the first time I truly committed to this. Instead of leaving work and going straight to the television, I started to read. I read books on business, philosophy, spirituality, and psychology. I started to write the ideas, to study successful people, to invest in courses. At the beginning, I confess, it seemed like nothing was changing. But, little by little, my way of speaking improved, my confidence grew, and my ideas became clearer. The market noticed. Soon, opportunities began to arise that would never have appeared if I had just kept doing my usual routine. Now, let me ask you, do you dedicate more time to your phone than to your own development? Do you spend more hours screwing than you do investing in becoming a more valuable person? If the answer is yes, you are not alone. Most people do this, but that is precisely where the opportunity is. When you do what most people do not, you achieve what most people never will. Think of someone like Oprah Winfrey. She did not become who she is just because she worked hard in front of the cameras. She became one of the most influential women in the world because she invested in herself, in her vision, in her mindset. She is a living example of what happens when you work harder on yourself than on your job. I learned this the hard way too. At 25 years of age, I was a young man with no prospects, in debt, and stuck in an ordinary job. But when I decided to invest in myself in learning new skills, in developing as a communicator, in improving my discipline, in just 7 years I had already made my first fortune. Not because the world changed, but because I changed. And you know what is interesting? Today we have scientific data that proves this. Studies in positive psychology show that people who invest in their own growth, be it through reading, spirituality, or social skills, not only earn more money but also report higher levels of happiness and well-being. In other words, working on yourself not only increases your value in the market but also improves the quality of your life in all aspects. So, I want to propose a challenge. Choose one area of your life that you know needs improvement. It could be communication, personal, finance, health, or leadership. For the next 30 days, dedicate at least 30 minutes a day to developing yourself in that area. Read a book, take a course, practice. And at the end of that period, compare who you were at the beginning and who you have become. You will realize that the most valuable result is not just the knowledge you gained, but the internal transformation that happens when you decide to work hard on yourself. The question you should ask yourself is not, how much time do I spend at work? But, how much time do I spend becoming someone the market cannot ignore? Because in the end, salaries do not change because you ask, they change because you change. And when you change, everything around you changes with you. I learned that owning money to survive is just the first step on the ladder. Each is the basic, each is the instinct of any human being, to have enough to pay the bills, buy food, and stay alive. But I soon realized that living at this level is living a limited life. Because the real life begins when you produce more than you need. It is when you pass the barrier of survival and begin to contribute. When I started owning more than I needed for myself, something extraordinary happened. The satisfaction was no longer just what I could buy, but what I could offer. The joy of helping someone, of supporting a project, of contributing to the community, was infinitely greater than any pleasure that money could give me. I remember clearly the first time I was able to donate a significant amount without worrying if I would miss it at the end of the month. The feeling was indescribable. It was as if I had found a greater purpose than simply accumulating. And perhaps you have felt this at some point, when you help someone who needed it, when you offer something without expecting anything in return. Is it not true that this feeling is different from any other? Is it not true that you leave that experience feeling bigger than when you entered? Well, that is the philosophy of generosity. It is not just about money, but about mindset, thinking beyond yourself, producing more to be able to offer more. Now, think with me, how many people do you know who are trapped in a scarcity mindset, who say, I barely have enough for myself? How can I help others? And precisely because they think this way, they never break the cycle of survival. The philosophy of generosity breaks this cycle. When you decide to produce more to share, you inevitably become more creative, more productive, and more valuable. I like to remember clear examples. Look at Bill Gates. The world is not just a medium for founding Microsoft, but because he decided to use billions of dollars to fight diseases, support education, and improve the lives of millions of people. Generosity elevated his legacy to a level that money alone could never reach. If you look on the other side, you will see stories of people who accumulated fortunes but did not know how to expand their lives beyond themselves. How many artists and athletes have you seen lose everything because they lived only for themselves, without thinking about contributing? Money that only comes in never flows out your odds, but money that circulates, that multiplies through generosity, creates life. I myself experienced this transformation. In the beginning, I just wanted to pay off my debts and feel a sense of relief. But when I realized that I could own more than I needed, I started to think differently. What if I could help my family? What if I could support causes I believe in? What if I could be generous? And believe me, this changing philosophy not only gave me more joy but made me prosper even more. It is as if the universe rewards those who choose to think beyond themselves. Current research confirms this. Studies in psychology show that people who practice generosity, be it through donations, chimi, or emotional support, have higher levels of happiness, well-being, and even physical health. It is as if our bodies and minds are programmed to prosper when we help others. So I ask you, do you want to live just to survive, or do you want to live an abundantly generous life? Do you want to look back and say, I just paid bills, survived? Or do you want to look back and say, I left a legacy, I helped people, I was a part of the transformation of lives? The truth is that generosity expands not only those who receive but especially those who give. Because when you decide to produce more than you need, you elevate yourself. You begin to live on another level, the level of contribution, the level of greatness. In that, my friend, is the true meaning of prosperity. It all begins and ends with your personal philosophy. It is not the government that determines your future. It is not your company. It is not the economy. It is the way you think, how you interpret the world, and how you act in the face of circumstances. Your philosophy is like a navigation system. It points out the dangers you should avoid and shows you the opportunities you can take advantage of. If your philosophy is weak, your life will be weak. If your philosophy is solid, your life will have unshakable foundations. I learned this when I realized that most people go through life on autopilot. They repeat phrases like, it is the government's fault, no one gives me opportunities, it is impossible to get rich honestly. This victim mentality is devastating. It takes away a person's power to act. Now, compare that to someone who decide still think differently, who says, if others have succeeded, I can too. If it is possible to multiply my income by 10, then I want to learn how. Just this change philosophy opens doors that once seemed locked. Think of how many examples we have right throughout of US. Look at Mike Tyson, who won hundreds of millions of dollars at the peak of his career, but lost almost everything. It was not a lack of talent. It was not a lack of opportunity. It was a lack of philosophy, because a philosophy that does not support wealth inevitably leads to ruin. On the other hand, ordinary people with a solid philosophy of discipline, learning, and responsibility have transformed their lives without needing luck or special talents. Now, let me ask you some questions. How many times have you blamed external factors for what you are experiencing today? How many times have you told yourself that you cannot change? What if, instead of relying on those excuses, you accepted that your personal philosophy is the biggest determinant of your life? Do you not think the direction would change immediately? I myself experienced this shift. There was a time when I accepted a poor philosophy, in which I saw myself as a victim of circumstances. But when I understood that my philosophy was the root of everything, I decided to rebuild it. I began to see life as an adventure full of dangers, yes, but also full of opportunities. This change was so profound that I never looked back. And it is something interesting. Science also confirms this. Research in psychology shows that people with a philosophy based on personal responsibility and purpose report higher levels of well-being, motivation, and even longevity. In contrast, people who are trapped in a nothing depends on me philosophy show more symptoms of stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. In other words, what you believe about life literally shapes your health, your happiness, and your results. That is why I say, the philosophy you choose is more important than any diploma, any salary, or any opportunity. Because each will determine how you react to failure, how you see chances, and how you get up after a fall. The wrong philosophy can destroy a promising future. The right philosophy can transform even the most unlikely of destinies. So, reflect. What is your philosophy today? Is it the philosophy of waiting, of complaining, of fear? Or is it the philosophy of responsibility, of performance, of growth? Because in the end, it is not life that decides for you. It is your philosophy that writes every chapter of your story. And when you decide to change that philosophy, you inevitably change your destiny. If there is one point I want you to take with you, it is this: success is not something you chase. It is something you attract by the person you become. It all starts with your personal philosophy. When you change the way you think, you change the way you act. And when you change the way you act, you inevitably change your destiny. Now, if this content resonated with you, I want to invite you to continue this journey with me. The next video is already showing up on the screen. In each we are going to climb another step on this ladder of evolution. A step that can make you 1% better than you are now. And remember, 1% with each step makes a gigantic difference in the long run. Thank you for being with me this far. I will see you in the next video.